into explicit patterns. We already know what recursive patterns are. They are patterns that relate term value to term value. So in this pattern right here, we would have a recursive pattern rule of start at 3 and add 2 each time. Now, pattern rules that are recursive can also help you find the explicit pattern rule. But let's talk about what the explicit pattern rule is. The explicit pattern rule is an algebraic expression that relates term number to term value, where recursive only talked about the relationship between term value to term value to term value. The explicit pattern rule talks about the relationship between x and y, between term number and term value, okay? X is always the term number and y is always the term value. This also gives us an opportunity later on to graph these coordinates and create a pattern or a slope with explicit patterns. Now, the explicit pattern is constant. That means it never changes. It means you can always use an explicit pattern rule to find the value of any term number. So if I had this pattern and I wanted to find the term value of the 1017th term number in the pattern, I would just have to use my explicit pattern rule because the explicit pattern rules are constant. I could also have an explicit pattern rule and I could know the value and wonder what is the term number that has the value of 1017 and work my way backwards. But let's hold off on that for now and let's just worry about how do I identify explicit patterns? How do I find the relationship between term number and term value? Well, let's be real. We only have 4 different possible operations. We have add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay, now you could sit here and go, okay, what do I do to 1 to get 3? Well, I can add 2. Does that work here? 2 plus 2, well, that's not 5. That's not going to work. Or I can go subtract. Well, I could start subtracting negative numbers and then I could get that, but that's not going to work either. One of the ways that I like to use is using what's called the common difference. The common difference is what you identify in a recursive pattern. For example, the common difference between the term values in this is 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. And we can pretty much assume that 7 plus 2 is going to equal 9. Okay? So we take that common difference and what we do is we times it by x. Now, when we have something that is multiplied by a variable, we call that 2x. But 2x isn't the pattern because when I take a look at this, if I go x times 2, it's not going to give me the number in the term value. So I can go 1 times 2, well, that doesn't equal 3, and 2 times 2 doesn't equal 5. So can I do something else to it? So 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 equals 3. Let's see if that works again. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 3 times 3 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So we know that our explicit pattern rule is 2x plus 1. That's our pattern rule that can be used all the time for this specific pattern. Over here, I have 1, 2, 3 for my x and 2, 5, 8. So let's see what I can do. Let's see if I can identify my common difference. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. So my common difference is 3. So I know we're going to start off with 3x. But what's the rest of this pattern? Because if I go 1 times 3, which is x times 3, it doesn't equal 2. So what do I have to do? Let's start off with subtraction. So 3 times x is 3 times 1, minus 1 gives me 2. That's good. 2 times 3 is 6, minus 1 gives me 5. That works too. Let's see. 3 times 3 is 9, minus 1 is 8. So that seems to work. So that is 3x minus 1 is our pattern for the second one. These are explicit pattern rules. Let's try a few more. All right, I have x and y. X is 1, 2, 3. It will I'll be X, 1, 2, 3 a lot. But not always. I could give you 5, 6, 7. As long as they are in order and you're able to identify the common difference, you should be able to find out what the explicit pattern rule is. And then my pattern goes 2, 4, 6. We can assume the next one is going to be 8. So the question is, what do I do to X to get Y? My common difference is 2. So we start off with saying 2X. Do I need to do anything else? 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. Nope, I don't have to do anything else. 2X is my explicit pattern rule. Let's take a look at this one. I've got 1, 2, 3. Then I've got 0.5, 1, and 1.5. Well, what can I do to get 0.5? Well, I can take away a half from 1. So 1 take away 0.5 is 0.5. 2 take away 0.5 is not 1. But what about if I divided it by 2? If I have 1 and I divide it in half, I have 0.5. 2 in half is 1. 3 in half is 1.5. This means that it's X divided by 2. Or, if you like using decimals, 0.5x, which is 0.5 times x. Now the next one, I threw an integer in because you should be well aware by this time of what a number line looks like. So let's take a look at this last one. 1, 2, 3, -1, 2, and 5. Again, find your common difference. Well, I know that the difference between 2 and 5 is 3. If I take 3 away from 2, I'm going to get -1. And so I know my answer has to be 3x. So 1 times 3, I'm going to move this so that you can see. 1 times 3 is 3. Now what do I do to get back to -1? Obviously, I have to subtract something. So 1 times 3 is 3 minus what? 2 times 3 is 6 minus 4 gives me 2. So let's see if that works. 1 times 3 is 3 minus 4 gives me -1. So my answer is 3x minus 4. Now sometimes these patterns will take you into the negatives. Find your common difference first. That's the one thing I have to tell you. Find your common difference, and that will help you generate what's going to be happening here. Okay, those are some examples of explicit patterns. I really hope you guys get it because this is something that's going to lead you into high school math and calculating slope and all that kind of stuff. Today, we are just going to be worrying about, can you identify these patterns? I'm going to be giving you a series of X's and Y's, different patterns, and you are going to come up with the explicit pattern rule. Now, if you have any questions, any concerns, you don't get it, you're still confused, you're sitting there, you're lacking confidence, email me. Ask me for a meet, and I will go over this with you until my lips fall off, because this is something that you really, really, really need to know, okay? So give the practice a try. See if you can identify the explicit patterns, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I want you guys to be able to nail this so that we can move on and you feel confident and comfortable with it, okay? Good luck today with explicit patterns.